Formula One is supposed to be about the best drivers in the world, but somehow it's also about paying millions to guys who couldn't out-qualify a lawnmower on a bad day. The truth is, some drivers aren't just overpaid, they're basically sponsored by daylight robbery. And the names on this list, you'd be surprised. Let's rip the band-aid off and start with Lance Stroll. His 2025 salary is about $3 million. Not crazy money in F1 terms, but let's be honest. If your dad owns the team, every dollar feels like an allowance. And for $3 million a year, Aston Martin basically gets a part-time midfield driver. While Alonso is out here dragging the same car onto podiums at age 43, Stroll is usually stuck somewhere between P10 and P15, blaming the balance or bad luck. $3 million might not sound huge, but when your teammate is doubling your points tally on double the salary, it looks less like a deal and more like a very expensive family hobby. Then there's Pierre Gasly at Alpine, sitting on a $10 million deal. $10 million is serious money. That's lead your team, deliver points every weekend, be the guy we build around money. Instead, Alpine is last in the standings, stuck in rebuild mode, and Gasly's season is a mix of anonymous midfield runs and occasional scrapes. He's not a bad driver, far from it.
Y vamos a ver desde el coche de Esteban Ocon que va a dar mucho miedo esto, ¿eh?
Madre mía, se ha encontrado ya a
su compañero. Sí. Madre mía, madre mía. Entre ellos, sí, están los dos aparcados, sí.
But when your team is fighting just to avoid finishing dead last, the optics of cutting a $10 million paycheck to your lead driver are brutal. If Alpine wanted mediocrity on a budget, they could have hired a rookie for a tenth of the cost and at least had potential as an excuse. Over at Sauber, we've got Nico Hülkenberg pulling in $7 million. And listen, Hulk is solid. He's consistent. He's experienced. He's the kind of guy you want in the paddock. But $7 million for a guy whose highlight reel in 2025 mostly consists of quietly finishing P11, that's steep. He's the definition of a dependable midfielder, but dependable doesn't sell tickets, and it sure doesn't win constructors' points. At this point, Sauber is paying superstar money for a really expensive safety net. Speaking of $7 million, Esteban Ocon at Haas is in the same boat. Ocon's career has been a mix of flashes of brilliance and flashes of carbon fibre. He's quick, no doubt, but Haas didn't bring him in to be quick sometimes. They brought him in to be the experienced leader who drags points out of a tricky car. Instead, he's chewing through front wings, colliding with teammates, and delivering the occasional points finish like it's a rare gift. $7 million a year for that kind of return? Haas might as well have bought a lottery ticket. At least then they'd have some excitement on Sundays. And then there's Carlos Sainz, clocking in at $10 million for his move to Williams. On paper it makes sense. He's a proven race winner, experienced, smooth operator, all that good stuff. But context is everything. Williams isn't Ferrari. They're climbing, sure, but they're not fighting for titles yet. So when Sainz walks in on a fat paycheck while Alex Albon is right next to him on $8 million, the math gets uncomfortable. If Sainz isn't clearly outperforming Albon, not just beating him occasionally, but outclassing him, then Williams basically paid an extra $2 million for PR value. If the smooth operator is spending most Sundays stuck in the same midfield traffic as his cheaper teammate, then it's less a masterstroke and more a nostalgia splurge. Speaking of Albon, $8 million feels like one of the trickiest numbers on the board. On one hand, he's arguably the best value-for-money midfield driver on the grid, constantly dragging Williams higher than it has any business being, making Sundays exciting when the car itself screams backmarker. On the other hand, $8 million is still a lot, when you're comparing it to the rookies on rookie deals who are already scoring points. He's probably not overpaid, but if Williams starts leaning harder on Sainz and Albon's points dry up, the value tag flips fast. Now let's talk about the points per dollar champions, the rookies and young guns. Oscar Piastri at $6 million is the best example. McLaren is a front-running car now, and he's delivering like a seasoned vet, but on a salary that's half of George Russell's and less than a third of Charles Leclerc's. If you're running the numbers, Piastri is basically a discount superstar. McLaren's getting champagne performance at sparkling water prices. Yuki Tsunoda at $2 million is another wild one. A couple of years ago, calling him overpaid at any number would have been easy. He was better known for his radio meltdowns than his lap times. But in 2025, he's finally grown into the driver people hoped for. $2 million for consistent points and the occasional top 10 heroics? That's not just fair, it's a steal. The guy is costing less than some of his engineers' coffee budgets and still outscoring drivers making 5 times as much. And don't sleep on the rookies like Kimi Antonelli, Bortolotto and Oliver Behrman. For what they're being paid, just finishing races cleanly is technically a bargain. But when they start sneaking points, suddenly they're making the $7 to $10 million veterans look very silly. And then you've got the true basement deals. Lawson, Doohan and Hajar at about $1 million. These guys could finish P14 every week and still be better value than half the midfield veterans. Of course, not every fat paycheck is a scam. Some of the big salaries actually make sense. Painfully so if you're one of the midfield guys we just roasted. Take Max Verstappen, for example. $65 million sounds insane. Until you realise he's basically a one-man constructors team. Red Bull is paying him superstar money because he is the sport's cheat code. The guy wins so often he's made entire seasons feel like reruns. If you divided his salary by race wins, you'd probably end up with a bargain bin price per victory. Love him or hate him, Max is proof that sometimes you do get what you pay for. Same story with Lewis Hamilton on $60 million. But he's not winning titles anymore. Doesn't matter. Lewis is still box office. He's a 7-time world champion. He fills grandstands, sells out merch, and drags eyeballs to Mercedes even on a bad Sunday. You're not just paying for the lap times, you're paying for the brand. If Mercedes cut his paycheck tomorrow, sponsors would riot. $60 million for Lewis isn't overpay. It's the cost of keeping the lights on. Charles Leclerc at $34 million is another case of justified expense. Ferrari isn't just paying for points. They're paying to keep their golden boy locked in. Leclerc is the driver they market, the driver they hope to win titles with, the face on every Ferrari poster. Is $34 million steep? Sure. But when you're Ferrari, losing him would cost even more. You can't build a title campaign around TikTok rookies on $1 million contracts. You need a star, and Leclerc is that star. Fernando Alonso at $20 million might sound wild for a guy in his 40s, but have you seen what he's doing at Aston Martin? He's turning midfield cars into podium contenders. The man is basically aging in reverse. If you told Aston they could buy podiums for $20 million a season, they'd hand you a blank cheque. And with Lance Stroll as his teammate, Alonso isn't just delivering points. He's single-handedly propping up the team's reputation. $20 million for that? That's money well spent. The real lesson here is that overpaid isn't just about the raw number. It's about points per paycheck. Verstappen's $65 million might sound insane, but he's delivering wins like Amazon Prime delivers packages. Meanwhile, someone like Ocon at $7 million is barely delivering half the points of rookies on $1 million. In other words, the expensive guys at the top are worth every penny. It's the guys in the middle cashing checks without results that really sting. So here's the bottom line. Not all big contracts are created equal. Some drivers are absolutely worth the millions. Verstappen, Hamilton, Leclerc, Alonso. The heavyweights who either win races, sell out grandstands, or both. But for every superstar whose paycheck makes sense, there's a handful of midfielders cashing in like they've discovered a glitch in the F1 payroll system. Think about it. Lance Stroll at $3 million is basically on the family plan. Gasly at $10 million is the face of Alpine's misery project. Ocon and Hülkenberg at $7 million are solid names delivering very average returns. And Sainz at $10 million? That one could swing either way. A bargain if he outclasses Albon, a massive overspend if he doesn't. Meanwhile, rookies are out here on $0.5 to $2 million deals, scoring points, grabbing headlines, and making the vets look silly. Oscar Piastri at $6 million looks like a steal. Yuki Tsunoda at $2 million is one of the most cost-efficient point scorers on the grid. Antonelli, Behrman, Lawson, Doohan, Hadjar. These guys are all on starter pack contracts, and every clean Sunday they deliver is basically free value. That's the cruel math of F1 in 2025. Some drivers are being paid like box office stars, but performing like extras, while others are on rookie deals and carrying their team's hopes for pennies on the dollar. And fans see it. That's why overpaid stings more in this sport than anywhere else. You can't hide in F1. The stopwatch doesn't lie, and neither does the constructors' table. Thanks for watching, and let me know in the comments who you think is the most overrated